All right, let's talk about something that's absolutely critical for getting through, well, life. Let's talk about resilience. And here's the best part. It's not some magic trait you either have or you don't. Nope. It's a skill. It's a muscle that every single one of us can build. And to really see what that looks like under the most extreme pressure imaginable, we got to start with an incredible story from over 100 years ago.
To really get what true resilience is, you have to go back to 1914 and look at this newspaper ad. I mean, can you believe this was a real job posting? The explorer Ernest Shackleton was looking for a crew to go to Antarctica. Well, their ship, the Endurance, it got trapped and then literally crushed by ice, stranding 28 men in the most brutal environment on the planet. For almost 2 years, they were up against it. Total darkness, starvation, constant danger, and yet, get this, every single man survived. Now that is the power of resilience in action. So the big question is, how do we build that kind of strength in our own lives? Well, that's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by figuring out what resilience really is. Then we'll look at the ancient mindset that it's all built on. From there, I'll give you a super practical 4-step plan to build your own. We'll explore the small habits that make a huge difference. And finally, we'll push beyond just being resilient to something even more powerful.
Okay, first things first. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. Because most of us have an idea of what resilience means, but the truth is actually much, much cooler.
So, the common idea, the one we all kind of know, is this idea of bouncing back. And that makes sense, because the word originally came from engineering, a material that can bend under pressure and then spring right back to its original shape. But when we're talking about people, about psychology, it's not about just going back to baseline. The American Psychological Association defines it as this process of adapting and growing. You're not just bouncing back, you're actually changing and getting stronger because of what you went through. And you can see that evolution so clearly right here. It started out as a very physical, mechanical term back in the 17th century. It wasn't until the 1960s that it even got applied to humans, when a psychologist noticed that some kids were actually thriving despite really traumatic childhoods. And that brings us to today, where we know it's this dynamic process. It's not about enduring, it's about evolving.
Now, you might think that kind of resilience is super rare, just for heroes like Shackleton's crew. But the research from a guy named George Bonanno is just wow. He found that the vast majority of people, we're talking up to 85%, eventually recover from extremely tough, adverse events. So here's the big takeaway. Resilience is the human norm, not the exception. We are literally wired for it.
Okay, so if we're wired for it, how do we flip the switch? How do we activate that wiring? Well, the core mindset, it's actually been around for thousands of years. It's rooted in an ancient philosophy that modern psychology has basically proven to be incredibly effective. This quote right here from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, it's a total game changer. The Stoics figured out something profound. We don't control what happens to us, but we have 100% control over how we respond. And that single idea became the foundation for modern therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT. It's all about creating a little space between the event and your judgment of it. And this is a really, really important distinction to make. When we say stoicism with a lowercase s, we usually mean that stiff upper lip, just bottling up your feelings, which honestly doesn't work. But stoicism with a capital S, that's the philosophy. It's not about being emotionless, it's about being empowered by focusing on what you can actually control. Okay, we've got the mindset. Now let's get our hands dirty. How do you actually do this? How do you build this skill? This next part is a 4-step evidence-based plan that comes straight from a type of CBT that's all about using the strengths you already have. So the goal here is to create something called a personal model of resilience, or PMR for short. Just think of it like your own personal playbook for dealing with hard times. It's a script that you write for yourself, and it's built on strengths that are already part of who you are. The whole process is actually pretty simple, but really powerful. First, you search for strengths you already demonstrate in your everyday life. Second, you construct your personal model from those strengths. Third, you apply that model to a challenge you're facing. And fourth, you practice it with small, real-world tests. And here's a perfect example of how this works in real life. On the left, you've got some strengths someone might notice from a hobby, like, say, video blogging. And on the right, you see how they translate that into a powerful, resilient strategy. So being committed to your group becomes, think about how I can help others. Sticking with a video until it's perfect becomes, trust in my ability to work hard and persist. See? You're not inventing new skills here. You're just taking the ones you already have and aiming them at your challenges. So having a plan is awesome, but resilience is really built in the day-to-day grind. It's not about these grand, heroic moments. It's about the small, consistent things you do that quietly build your mental toughness over time.
And honestly, one of the best ways to practice this is to create what we can call ritual moments in your morning. Your morning is one of the few times of day you have almost total control over. It's the perfect gym for your resilience muscle. So let's look at 4 simple habits you could literally start tomorrow morning.
First up, before you grab your phone, before you check your email, just give yourself 10 minutes of silence. When you do that, you're sending a really powerful message to your brain. You're saying, I'm in charge here, not all the reactive chaos of the outside world. It's a small act of taking control that can set the tone for your whole day.
Next, and this one might sound a little weird, but intentionally do something that's a bit uncomfortable. It could be a 30-second cold blast at the end of your shower or just doing 10 burpees. When you voluntarily face a small physical hardship, you're training your brain to believe a fundamental truth: I can handle hard things.
Third, set an intention. But here's the key. It's not about what you want to achieve today. It's about who you want to be. So maybe it's, today I'm going to be patient, or today I will stay curious. This builds your self-awareness and gives you a North Star to come back to when things get tough.
And finally, do one small thing you've been putting off. You know the one. Reply to that email. Make that appointment. Procrastination just whispers to us that we can't handle things. By tackling one of those avoided tasks, you prove the opposite to yourself. You build a little bit of momentum, a little bit of confidence.
So we figured out that resilience is this amazing, adaptable skill that we can all build. But what if the goal isn't just to endure stress? What if we could actually get better because of it? Let's take this whole idea one step further.
So let's just quickly put it all together. Resilience isn't about bouncing back. It's about adapting and growing. It all starts with the mindset that you control your response. It's a skill you can build with a clear 4-step plan. And it's trained every single day through small, intentional habits. You really can become the architect of your own resilience. But there's this one final idea that just takes it to a whole other level.
And that concept is called anti-fragility. It's a state where you don't just withstand hardship, you actually get stronger from it. Think about it like this. A wine glass is fragile. It shatters under stress. A plastic cup is resilient. It takes the hit and is fine. But our bones are anti-fragile. Under the stress of exercise, they don't just endure it, they grow back thicker and stronger.
And that, right there, is the ultimate goal. That 4-step model we talked about, it's not just a repair kit to get you back to where you were. It's a blueprint for becoming more than you were before. Just like Shackleton's men, who weren't just the same people after their ordeal, they were profoundly changed and strengthened by it. Our challenges can become our greatest source of growth.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. What if you started to see life's biggest challenges not as obstacles to get over, but as opportunities? As the perfect training ground to become the person you're truly meant to be? What would be possible for you then?